Good thing you have insurance. The lady in front of you just called that Bernstein.
Enough said. Call Ed. EdBernstein.com.
Now, here's Ed Bernstein.
Elections, and more elections. You know, it's that time of the year, and hey, pay attention, because this is an important election. Today we're going to feature two candidates, Justin Jones, who's a former state senator running for the county commission, and Melanie Scheible, who's running for the state senate. Actually, your old seat,
Yep.
Justin, right?
Yeah, District 9.
District 9. And District 9 is where exactly?
But really the southwest part of town, so Southern Highlands, Mountains Edge, Rhodes Ranch, and then up into sort of the west Summerlin area.
And the county commission includes that area as well as much larger, right?
It is. So it includes all of District 9, so that same area, but then also it includes everything between Flamingo and mostly Charleston from the 15 westbound. So all that sort of Section 10, older area, Spring Mountain area of town, and then all the way up into the Summerlin, West Summerlin area.
Now, having been a state senator in almost the same area, and now running for county commission, what is the difference that you're hearing from constituents, and what is your observation, what the difference is in running for those two different positions?
Sure. So some of the issues are very much the same. I mean, when we're knocking doors, we hear about education is definitely a top priority. Healthcare is still really a top priority, but it's also the local issues, and that's part of the reason why I decided to run for the county commission. People are really concerned about safety in their neighborhoods. They're concerned about pedestrians and cyclists and whether they're safe on our streets. They're concerned about our sawtooth roads where you have one lane that goes to 6 lanes and then back down to 1 lane. And those are the types of frustrations that we hear certainly at the door almost every day.
And that type of situation occurs because of development in some areas are slower than in other areas. So as you develop an area, I'm sure you require the developer to add the lanes and provide the easements or whatever they have to provide, and then so you have an area with 4 lanes, and then it cuts down to 1 because it's undeveloped land.
Yeah, and so certainly the county comes in at times and just builds out an entire roadway, right? And so we see that happening in certain parts of town. But unfortunately in the Southwest, it's a lot of undeveloped land, some of it's still BLM lands. And so as a result of that, you have parcels that aren't developed. And so unless the county comes in and spends that additional money to finish off the roadways where a developer hasn't done the off-site improvements there, then you get the frustration of lots of cones, or you have barriers that may force you down into 1 lane on one side of the road, and it's a traffic nightmare, as you know.
Yeah. You've been very active over the years in environmental issues, particularly up at Red Rock.
Yep.
And Red Rock's not really even in your Senate district, is it?
It wasn't the Senate district, but it is in the County Commission district. So all of the Red Rock area, I'm happy to say, is all in District F. So
give me a quick rundown of what's really going on in Red Rock.
Sure. So a developer many years ago purchased about 2,400 acres of land that's up on sort of the top of a mountain that looks down into Red Rock Canyon, and wanted to build, the original proposal was more than 11,000 homes, and that's sort of come down over the years. He sued the county, and as a result of that lawsuit, the county agreed to at least start the process of reviewing his proposal. The number of homes went from 8,000 down to 5,000, and then it sort of languished for a period of years. There was some efforts for a land swap. The BLM ultimately said no, and so the developer right now is still pushing forward with what may be a 5,000 home development up there. You're talking 40,000 plus car trips a day if that happens, and those folks are either going to go through Red Rock Canyon on 159, or they're going to be coming down Blue Diamond Road. That's a big concern.
So I assume a lot of residents are opposed to that.
Yeah, I think we've done polling over the years, and it polls opposition at 80 to 90%.
So assuming that that doesn't pass and we're just going to keep Red Rock, I mean, the idea is to keep Red Rock as pristine and as it is today.
Yeah, we don't need 40,000 more people driving through Red Rock Canyon. We've had some tragic deaths out there, and we have a few pristine spaces that are left for those of us who live here in the valley, and we want to make sure that we are able to still visit them without marring them for future generations.
This is very much a transitional election in the county commission. Because we have several county commissioners probably won't be there or won't be there next year.
Right.
You're running for a seat where Susan Brager is retiring, right? Chris G. It was her last term.
Yep.
Steve Sisolak, does he have more years left?
He's midterm. If he wins as governor, then he'll appoint his replacement. Otherwise, he would be out in 2 years anyways, because he's at the end of his term there.
And Jim Gibson in one of the districts was just recently appointed a year or so ago, right?
Right.
So in essence, you can potentially have 4 different county commissioners than were there 2 years ago.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? So
yeah.
When you see that, what is your feeling? I mean, is that a good thing? Or is it an exciting thing? Is it a way to start over, start new, be fresh ideas? What's your input?
Well, I think that the current county commission, or at least the folks that have been there for the last several years, have done a great job in moving the county forward. A lot of them took over in a very difficult time, obviously. They went on the board at a time when it was in the middle of a recession. They were coming off of some very ugly times at the county commission in terms of corruption. So they took over at a challenging time, and I think obviously we've seen the county grow both financially and also in terms of economic development. We've got the Raiders here as a result of Commissioner Sisolak and others' influence over there. So I think it's an exciting time to continue that progress and expand upon the work that's been done over the last several years.
Yeah. I mean, one of the big issues in the last year was the stadium and the county, and some people, most people were in favor of it, and some people aren't. What was your feeling about it?
Look, I think that anytime we have an opportunity to bring a marquee franchise to Southern Nevada, that's an exciting thing. I think that we made the right decision. It was a decision that was not only to bring the Raiders here, but also to expand the convention center. That was something that LVCVA had really been looking for several years. And so to get a twofer, to get an expansion of the LVCVA convention facility along with a marquee football franchise, I think was really the right way to go, and I think we're going to see it pay dividends over the next couple of years.
Right. So now that it's happening and it's being built, and we drive by it and you see it, I mean, it's amazing. You can see it kind of rising, out of the deserts. But it seems like even today's paper, parking becomes the issue. The county commission, of which you are not a part yet, voted to approve a plan. Right? I mean, is that a done deal, or is it subject to a review where they can add more parking or require more parking? Or
they can always require more as we go forward and see what happens. I mean, I think if you look at the Golden Knights and the Golden Knights games and their parking plan for T-Mobile Arena, they didn't know for sure how it was going to all work out, and it's worked out pretty well. But I think obviously we're going to have to see how many of the people who go to a Raiders game are coming from in town and are going to need a place to park. Are they going to use services like Uber and Lyft? Or is it mostly folks that are going to be coming from the Strip, in which case are they simply going to come from places like Mandalay Bay in order to get there, in which case you don't need additional parking for those folks. So I think it's going to be a process.
Is there going to be a way to walk over from?
There will.
Yeah.
So Hacienda, they're going to, as I understand it, turn it into sort of pedestrian walkway for the games or other events that are going on. So you won't be able to drive on Hacienda, but you'll be able to get from sort of the Mandalay Bay area over across to the Raider Stadium.
That's a good place to have a water stand, right?
That would
soft
be.
Drinks on that little
Sounds like a good investment.
bridge on the way in and out. Look, I've been here over 40 years. For the last 40 years, we've been talking about getting some sort of transportation from the airport all the way down to downtown Las Vegas.
Yep.
We have a monorail, which is, kind of doesn't doesn't extend to the airport and doesn't extend to Las Vegas. I mean, is that ever going to happen?
Well, I think there are two different things there. So the monorail, there's been some proposals to extend the monorail out to the Raiders Stadium, or at least to the Mandalay Bay. So that would improve the parking situation for that specific venue. But there's a separate proposal for light rail that would go from the airport to downtown to the medical district on Charleston, and that's been before the RTC, the Transportation Resources Advisory Committee, which is really business leaders here in town, have been going around to sister jurisdictions like Salt Lake and Denver and Phoenix to check out their light rail systems, see what works for them and what doesn't work, and put forth a proposal. And so that's working its way through RTC right now, and I think it'll probably make recommendations here in the next few months.
What is most important to you is going on to the county commission? What is something that you really like to see changed?
Look, I mean, like you, I'm a father. I have two wonderful kids. My daughter just started high school. My son's in 3rd grade. I want to make sure that we have a livable community that they want to come back to if they go to college somewhere else, or if they stay here. I want to make sure that it is a place where they can live and work and play for the next generation. And that's obviously a combination of making sure that we have the right jobs here, that we have improvements in our education system, and also that we have places that they can play, like parks and places like Red Rock Canyon.
Right. And how does that work with, I mean, the county commission does have responsibility in determining what parks get built where. I mean that's got to be an important issue, right?
It's absolutely an important issue. We get a lot of money through the BLM land sales process, right. And so a lot of that money is used by the county in order to build new parks. We've got some amazing new facilities in the Southwest, a big soccer complex that's going off over by Sierra Vista High School. We've got a new baseball facility going in Mountain's Edge, and so we have some really exciting prospects right now. But I think that we need to do a better job of making sure that everyone really has access to a park.
If you get on the county commission, you're going to be working with new people, different people, and less people than you worked with in the state senate. Yep. Right? How do you see that difference?
Well, I think obviously the county commission is a different animal. The legislature, you're working with 63 odd other people, and then you have your larger caucuses. You can meet in larger sessions. The county commission is a little bit different. Aside from formal meetings, you can't have those meetings with people other than a small group, just because of the open meeting laws. And so it's a little bit different dynamic, but I think that it's exciting. I've worked with a couple of these people before when I was in the legislature. I worked closely with Dick Segerblom when I was in the legislature on the Judiciary Committee, and certainly with Speaker Kirkpatrick when I was up there. And so I think it's an exciting time to work with other folks and learn from them and continue the progress here in Clark County.
Good news being, of course, you don't have a governor you have to worry about vetoing any legislation that you do pass, right?
That's true.
County commission, the buck stops there. Right?
Absolutely right.
Hey, Justin Jones, thank you so much, and good luck in November.
Well, I appreciate that, and I hope that you can call me your commissioner.
Okay, yeah, I am in your district, yep. And I'm in this in Melanie's district also. We'll be right back from Melanie Scheible.
When sorry is not enough. Enough said. Call Ed. EdBernstein.com.
Hi, we're back with elections, and more elections. And Melanie Scheible is running for, and it's your first venture, first foray into the political world. You're running for state senate, and it happens to be my district. An important district to me.
It just so happens.
Yeah. What encouraged you to get involved politically? I mean, you're an attorney.
I am, yes. And I grew up here in Nevada. I actually went to public schools in Reno, and I graduated from Reno High School, and I had a fantastic experience getting my public education here in Nevada. But I left for college and to get my law degree, but after I finished, I really wanted to come back to Nevada. I missed it, and home means Nevada to me, so I came back. I ended up in Las Vegas a couple years ago, and after working for a few years as an attorney, I wanted to get more involved. I wanted to do more, and when this seat opened up, the timing was kind of right. So I threw my hat in the ring, and I've been going full speed ahead ever since.
But how did that happen? One day you just woke up and said, "Hey, I want to run for state senate."
Not exactly. Yeah. So I studied public policy as an undergraduate, and I'm pretty young, so that actually wasn't that long ago for me. Right. And most of my career has been working in the law and policy field. And there aren't a lot of people who get to work on a lot of different policy issues at one time, because I care a lot about education, I care a lot about criminal justice, I care about the environment, I care about renewable energy and smart economic development, and where do you get to work on all of those issues except at the legislature?
Right.
So that's what got me interested initially, was wanting to get that experience.
When you read all the polling, it seems that education is always at the top of the list. Now, education takes a myriad of cooperation between the local government, state government, federal government, right? So how much can you do in the state legislature?
Well, at the state level, that's where all the funding comes from for most of our educational endeavors here in Nevada. The federal government regulates certain aspects of it, but at the end of the day, the school districts are managed by the state Board of Education, and that board gets its funding from the legislature. And the legislature also has the ability to pass laws, pass resolutions, implement policies that affect the way the school boards at each school district level function.
Right. So, and like when you're watching political commercials now, and you see like in the race for governor, education, seems to be a prominent. So what are you hoping for? Are we hoping to get more money, and if so, where would it come from, or a better use of the money? What is your thoughts?
I have a two-pronged approach, and the first one, of course, is that we need more money. That's the bottom line, is that the more money you're able to invest in education, the more you're able to offer students. But of course, we live in the real world where money doesn't grow on trees, and so we have to think about ways that we can improve our educational system that are little to low cost. One thing that I'm really interested in is literacy, and especially for young children. There have been a couple of studies in the last decade or so that show that kids who read for 20 minutes a day, or kids who have 10 books at home at all times, tend to learn to read faster, they become literate faster, and they make more grade level improvement than other students. And those implementing 20 minutes of reading or providing students with books, it's not the panacea for our educational system, but those are low to no cost projects that we can embark on to help jumpstart kids' educations from a very young age.
And essentially, when I think you mentioned the word books, and I'm thinking, yeah. Who else reads books? Everybody's on, on computers and other devices reading. But when you're talking about kindergartners, first, second, third graders, they're not. They still need to read books.
Exactly. And Clark County has some of the best libraries that I've ever seen, and I've lived in a couple different states across the country, and our libraries are immaculate. They are very well stocked. I've personally asked librarians here to order books for me or get books transferred to my local library, and they've done it. So I think that people need to utilize those resources and take advantage of all of the opportunities that we have here in Las Vegas to improve our education.
And I know you've been very active in veterans issues, and it seems to me that veterans issues are more or less a federal issue, but you really deal with it at the local level.
Yeah, so one of the things that I've been involved in personally is our veterans courts here in Clark County. I don't get to work in veterans courts based on the way that our office is structured, and I'm a deputy district attorney. I work for the Clark County District Attorney's Office, so I deal with people who unfortunately are veterans and are now involved in the criminal justice system. And for a lot of these folks, coming back from either active duty or from some other kind of military service has lasting repercussions for them. They suffer from PTSD, other mental health issues, or simply just reintegration issues. And so I've been working really hard to get people into Veterans Court where they are qualified for it. And I would like to see us expand our offerings for veterans, not just in the Veterans Court, but through the VA and our other service options.
Well, what does the Veterans Court offer to them?
Yeah, so Veterans Court, anybody who qualifies for services through the VA is eligible for a Veterans Court option instead of going through the traditional criminal court system, right? And so in a veterans court, an individual who's been charged with a crime would generally take some kind of plea negotiation to go to veterans court, and they have to appear in that courtroom in front of the veterans court judge at specified periods of time, and it's up to the judge, it's up to their caseworker to kind of establish how often they think they need to check in, for lack of a better word, with the judge. And the judge will set requirements. You have to enter this job training program and complete it within 4 weeks. And so they'll set a date 4 weeks out. The veteran comes back and says, I've done it. Or they might say, I couldn't do it because I don't have transportation and I couldn't get there on week 2. And so then they say, okay, let's take a step back, let's get you some transportation, and now let's try again to get you through the job training program.
Now, I was talking to Justin Jones, who was a state senator in the district you're running for at one time, and talking about the transition in the county commission. We also have a transition in the state senate. We have a lot of people who have served last year or this year in the state senate. They're moving on to different offices or retiring. So how does that bode for you that you're going to be entering into with some new faces, some rookies, so to speak? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
It's mixed, of course. Having that institutional knowledge of more experienced senators is always helpful to those of us who are just entering the arena. But one of the fantastic things about this year's state senate races is that it is full of women. And I'm running, Julie Pizzina is running, Marilyn Dondero-Lupa is running. All 3 of us are running in adjacent districts for state senate. And if we win, we will have a caucus that is made up of mostly women.
So what does that mean to me as a man? I mean, it's great, and I'm totally in favor of it.
Yeah.
But when women, hey, it's great we get women, but the men are thinking, okay, is this a good thing for me?
Yeah. Well, I think that it allows us to get some work done that we haven't been able to do in the past.
Like getting along?
Well, it's just that when I originally thought about running for office before this particular seat opened up, I always assumed that I would be in the minority, that I would be climbing this uphill battle to join the old boys club, and that's not the case at all in this race. In this race, it is, a table full of women that the men are, taking a few seats at, and so I think that just helps us kind of reframe the way that we look at what is the standard, what is normal, what is the expectation. And I think that helps us to kind of break through some old ways of thinking that might be a little bit ingrained.
And that also, I would think, raises education right to the very top of that.
We can hope.
Right? I mean, it seems, because women are typically more involved in education than their husbands. The men are out working, and women are out making sure their kids get the right education.
I mean, it works that way in some families for sure.
Some, yeah. And some. Well, look, you're talking to a guy who has 6 daughters, so I'm a total believer in women's intuition.
Yes.
Because I know when my wife tells me something about somebody we just met, she has much greater intuition and insight into that person than I have. I totally believe that. Environmental issues are, seem to be another important issue that women, fight for.
Yes, absolutely.
And where do you see that concern in the state senate?
I think that environmental issues are always going to be important in Nevada. And I think that we're going to have a lot of work to do. There's definitely going to be several bills in front of us about energy and clean energy and renewable resources. And it's hard to predict at this point. And this goes back to what we were talking about earlier. Senators who have already served in the legislature probably have a better sense for what's coming down the pike. They were there last year for that fight, and they can kind of predict what's going to happen this time. But for those of us who are new, we can rely on their knowledge to get us up to speed. But at the end of the day, we can be surprised by what happens at the legislature.
Right. How do you get the word out in a state senate race? This is an election year where there's so much, millions and millions of dollars coming in to buy TV time from out of state. Then you have the Senate, governor's race, U.S. Senate races, congressional races, commission races, and we have all these every state assembly is running, and a lot of the Senate races.
Well, there are 2 things. The first is that we work together. We're all in the same team. You had Justin Jones on here earlier. Justin and I are meeting up tomorrow to go walk together and campaign for both of us, because we'll be on the same ballot and people can vote for both of us. We're actually going with a third candidate. So it's not necessarily a competition between candidates for different offices. At least I don't like to see it that way. But when it comes to just making sure that people know about the elections and they have a chance to get to meet me, is knocking on doors.
That's it. And it's not easy when you have a full-time job, when you're working in the district attorney's office.
Right. Yesterday I left the office at 5. I drove out to District 9. I knocked on doors for 2 hours, and I drove back to the office to catch up on paperwork. So it is a challenge, but I think it's worth it.
Right. If you do end up in the state senate, and we're sitting here 4 years from now, what would be the one thing that you would like to be most proud of to accomplish?
It's a tough one.
Is it tough because there's many?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. I would like to see improvements in education. There is a specific issue that's on my mind, which is the revenue from marijuana taxation that has been put into the savings account in order to be redistributed into educational funds, and I think it's really important that we get that done at the legislature
And why hasn't that been done? I mean, wasn't that part of the selling point in trying to get recreational marijuana, that it would go, the money, tax money would go to education?
Yes. So the good news is that it didn't go anywhere else. It was put into an account to be redistributed to, or to be put back into the education budget. And it was the legislature's onus to figure out how. And my understanding is that the legislature couldn't agree on how to spend this money on education. So we have to go back to the drawing board, try to renegotiate, come up with a plan that both sides of the aisle and both houses can agree on to take the money that is currently sitting between the sessions and come up with a way to invest in our educational system.
Are you optimistic that with all the new legislators that will be in office, that there'll be a better opportunity for getting along, compromising, and having effective legislation?
I do. I think that happens when you have new people joining the organization. In this case, the organization is the legislature. You get kind of a fresh start when you have a lot of new faces, a lot of new ideas, a lot of fresh
personalities, and the history is just not there. I mean, sometimes there's some discourse because of prior votes.
Sure.
Yeah. Well, best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Your district is where?
Okay, the Southwest, so it's South Summerlin through Mountain's Edge and Southern Highlands.
Okay. Melanie Scheible?
Scheible.
Scheible. See, I had it right the first time.
You did.
This is the second time. But it's Melanie.
That's me.
Okay. Good luck to you.
Thank you so much.
Good thing you have insurance. The lady in front of you just called that Bernstein.
Enough said. Call Ed. EdBernstein.com.